Finally tonight, America's dropout crisis. Each year, approximately 1 million students drop out of high school. That's roughly 7,000 every day.
What happens when students drop out? Are American schools any good at providing a flexible path to graduation for those who've already checked out?
In 2009, poor students, or those belonging to the bottom 20% of all family incomes, were 5 times more likely to drop out of high school than high-income students, or the top 20% of all family incomes.
This needs to change, and all schools should be receiving more funding, as education is a very important aspect of every child's life. Different schools have different amounts of financial availability to them, something that we cannot deny. Schools who are less financially stable don't receive enough money because of the environment which they are in. This is not right at all.
On the other hand, financially fortunate schools receive more funding, which is good, but ignores the schools that are in need of this money as well. These differences affect the students and the quality of education that they receive.
While students in better-off schools have more access to educational tools and better teachers, some less fortunate schools do not offer students the same opportunities to succeed. We asked our school's head principal how he felt about the issue of unequal funding in our local schools.
If a school in an area is not sufficiently funded, that's a concern. Funding for the base level of a quality education starts and emanates from our legislature and our state level. But I think it really starts in our state formula for education so that everybody's starting off at a base level that is sufficient to get a high quality education.
We also asked members of our school who have experienced our education system firsthand.
I believe that it is important for a student's education to have great funding put towards textbooks, materials, and online accesses in order to give a student the utmost opportunity to succeed. Without this funding, students would be limited to resources to use in and out of school.
Well, there's a lot of areas in which funding impacts how students actually perform. Underpaid teachers, for instance, then you might not have as high quality of instruction. If you don't have adequate textbooks, then there's not the anchoring material to use. If students don't have access to technology so that they can access the tools of our modern age, then they're not going to be able to have the job skills that will prepare them for the future. And a school that's underfunded is not necessarily going to give them the opportunity to exercise and practice those skills.
All schools should receive this funding, regardless of the area they are located in or how highly performing they are. According to a study done by the Department of Education, 45% of high-poverty schools received less state and local funding than was typical for other schools in their district that were more fortunate.
Last year, tens of thousands of educators from Arizona helped lead the nation walking out of their classrooms to protest cuts to schools and funding. They told me about outdated textbooks, overcrowded classrooms, and school supplies so limited that kids were taking tests with crayons. They succeeded in securing much-needed pay raises for teachers. But the Arizona legislature refused to provide sufficient money for support staff, classroom supplies, and other resources they need to effectively do their jobs.
This funding is absolutely necessary, and legislatures should not be ignoring the needs of the American education system.
Some schools may be deemed less safe than others, which can negatively impact how a student views school. Funding can fix these issues by motivating students and providing a safer environment for them to study in.
We asked a few experts how they think the safety of a learning environment affects students' attendance and education in school.
What we associate things with can impact how we interact with them, especially in an academic setting. If I'm in a setting where we're constantly trying to avoid some next catastrophe, my association with education and with academic achievement is going to be with a place that doesn't feel safe. Funding offers opportunities to have schools in better locations and to have a greater number of teachers so that the class sizes can be smaller.
If the environment is deemed unsafe, chances are students won't show up for school on a daily basis.
Less fortunate schools may seem not as safe because of cultural factors and other factors and other things in neighborhoods surrounding the schools. The main part of us and our students' success has to do with safe, trusting environments that we establish here.
Every student should be able to feel like they are in a safe, trusting environment when they are in school. Mansion High School is an extreme example of what happens when safety gets out of check.
For 5 years running, Mansion was considered one of the most dangerous schools in America.
You scared sometimes of coming to school?
Yeah.
Each day it gets scarier.
Funding schools can lead to higher graduation rates and better levels of education, which pave the path for success later on in life. We asked some more people how they thought equally funding all schools and higher levels of education would affect graduation rates in life after high school.
I consider myself to be a very driven student, but if it were not for the resources I have been given, I could not have achieved the education I needed to have the opportunity to attend the university of my dreams next year.
Schools with higher graduation rate, they offer more than just the academics at the school. The schools are well-rounded with multiple activities, and students actually have a desire to want to be in that particular building.
We chose the topic of education because we believe that every child deserves the right to an education in order to secure them a successful future and to create a generation of people that can change the world. This topic is extra important in the upcoming election.
But this time around, I think the states are getting squeezed fiscally, so they're having a hard time paying the bills, and so you see cuts in K-12 education, you see cuts in higher education.